On April 10, 1912, to great fanfare, the luxury ocean liner Titanic departed from Southampton, England, on its way to New York. 4 days later, after colliding with an iceberg in the North Atlantic, it sank below the surface of the sea in less than 3 hours, taking more than 1,500 passengers and crew with it, and making it one of the worst maritime disasters in modern history. Today, around the world, there are several museums and exhibits dedicated to the tragedy. And at least 3 of those have reported paranormal activity. Recently, one more museum in Illinois was apparently added to that list. June 22nd, 2024, Volo, Illinois. When Jim Wojdola, marketing director of the Volo Museum, shows up for work, he finds that the Titanic exhibit, which is about 1.5 years old, has flooded.
My name is Jim Wojdola, and this is my video. We walked in one morning to open up, and the whole thing was underwater. And we're like, that's really strange. We had a storm, but this building's 40 years old. It's never flooded, and we've had way worse storms. So we were looking around to see if there was a crack or something, and when we were looking around, we're checking the foundation, no cracks. There's no reason, no burst pipes. There's nothing going on. So then we went to the security tape.
And when they watch the tape, they see this. Water pooling from underneath an antique automobile. A replica of the one single car that happened to be on the Titanic when it sank.
This Renault that's sitting behind me is in the middle of the exhibit. What happens is the way our building is, so this wall on the high part of the land, the water hit that, went around this way to this wall. Now, half of it's an exterior, half it's interior, but it has to go down a trench, a drainage trench, up this trench, and through here. And the source of the leak started under this car. We're like, goosebumps? They were like, no way that's possible. There's probably a good couple inches of water throughout the whole exhibit and hasn't flooded since. Tons of storms have come through, not one leak since. It's crazy.
Something else that's crazy is that the Titanic exhibit is the only area in the museum that flooded.
The museum itself sits on 35 acres. There's probably 20 plus buildings with over 50 exhibits. So the fact that no other exhibits on all the property flooded, just the Titanic flooded, we're like, what? That's crazy.
When you examine this video, it's so strange. I mean, this water is coming from nowhere. I mean, it's not coming from the walls, it's not dripping from the ceiling, it's not rushing in from any other source, but from underneath this vehicle, this car.
The flood we see on the surveillance footage seems to kind of creep into the whole exhibit, and it just kind of reminds me of like how exactly the Titanic would have sunk. Like, I just imagine level by level by level just getting flooded. There was like an ominous slow effect that would remind me of what a sinking ship would have probably seemed like before your demise.
Perhaps even more ominous is what happened in this very same location before.
It started as an antique firefighter exhibit. So it had a few old engines and some equipment and uniforms and things like that. They had that for several years, and then one night, overnight, it just burned everything down to like the skeleton of the building. And we couldn't find any gas leaks or any source of electric shortage or anything like that.
So then, could the building itself be haunted?
I love the idea that this particular building is somehow just like inherently built for irony. You know, it's a firefighters museum and it burns down. And now it's a Titanic museum and it floods. Like, this building has its own personality, and that personality is one that is going to make us sort of wonder about the level of coincidence in the world.
I think that it's not the building that's necessarily haunted. I think it's the objects that hold spiritual attachments. Like most museums, they tend to be really active because a lot of the objects within the museum have their own past, have their own history, might even have spirits that are attached to the object because they're very special.
Especially if those objects represent a horrific tragedy.
There are numerous Titanic exhibits all across the globe. And there's a lot of paranormal activity that seems to be associated with at least a handful of those. And it makes you wonder if our reverence and awareness of this tragic moment in history might be drawing in the activity.
If that's the case, Jim is taking measures to capture more of it.
After that happened, now we're like, make sure everything's on. We put an extra Wi-Fi piece in here to really make sure all those cameras are up and running all the time and there's backups, because, you know, if there is something that's going to happen, we want to see it for sure and share it with you guys.